I had a business coach who taught me, the first thing he said to me is, if you want to be more successful in business, you got to become a better person. And I was like, what? I'm great. What are you talking about? I'm the man. Nobody told you. And this was, 2.5 years ago. And then the second thing that he taught us was great leaders develop people who can develop great people.
Hey everyone, I'm Andy Petronic, the co-founder of the Whole Life Challenge, and welcome to episode 159 of the Breaking Ordinary podcast. This is a show about raising the bar, improving your life, transforming your health, fitness, and well-being, and shattering the status quo. My guests are people who have found the inner strength and confidence to lead from the front, to stand out, to be different, and to truly make a difference in the world of health, fitness, and well-being. Their stories will astound, inspire, and inform, and will help generate ideas that spring you into action. Guys, it's great to be back. Thank you for being here, for being a listener, for allowing me to continue to do this. Something that I absolutely love doing. Having conversations with just awesome, extraordinary people who do extraordinary things. Today's episode is right up there in my tops. I mean, it's funny. I say that all the time. Maybe I pick well, or maybe everybody just has a really compelling story. I don't know. No, I'm definitely picking well. The conversation today, the podcast, is with Dr. Sean Pastuch. He's the founder of Active Life RX. He's a movement therapist, expert, and chiropractor, and he's worked with some of the top CrossFit athletes of the world, like Rich Froning, Team Mayhem. If you're a CrossFit person, you'll know who those people are. He's got a lot more people he's worked with, and we talk about that during the podcast. He's also worked with many normal people. In fact, that's really what he does most of the time. But I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a second. I wanted to say, I heard the other day somebody saying that they were going to wait until January to get started, that anything going on in December was kind of like a wash, and they were going to wait to start on their quest for a new body and improved health and fitness until January. I didn't say anything at the time, but I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about that at the beginning of the podcast because, hello, New Year's resolutions don't work. All you people that are thinking you're going to wait till January to get started, why are you waiting till January? What's so magic about January 1? There's no magic on January 1st. It's like saying, I'm going to wait till March 1st, or I'm going to wait till 4 p.m. on April 30th. What's magical about that moment? What's magical about any moment that you declare you're going to start is that you start. There's no reason to wait. One of the things I say to my son every night that I put him to bed is we ask for, blessings, and then we say, let's wake up tomorrow. We pray that we wake up tomorrow refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to start the day as if it's the first day of the rest of our life, because it is the first day of the rest of our life. If you want to start, if you're ready to start, if you're looking around at your life and going, this is not what I want, start now. Start tomorrow. Start first thing when you wake up. Take one action. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It does not have to be a big thing. Wake up, lace up a pair of shoes, and go out for a 5-minute walk. Why? Well, it certainly might not be your workout for the day. It could be, but it might not be. It's a reminder that you're in charge of your day. Get your head clear. Get your body started. And remind yourself, hey, I'm in charge here. What I say What I say goes, and I say we go outside and go for a 5-minute walk. And it feels good. And your lungs are going to feel good. I don't care how bad the weather is. In fact, if the weather's bad, it's even better. Buck the system. Buck the world. Why? Because you can. Take out the umbrella. Put on a rain jacket. Take out your snowshoes if you have to. Take your 5-minute walk. And look, if that's not the thing, then find something else. Meditate. Write in a journal. 5 minutes. 2 minutes. Throw out all the bags of chips in your pantry. Just throw them away. Yes, I know, it's wasteful. It's wasteful of junk food. It could be worse. You could be throwing away all the vegetables. Don't do that. All right, so let's get on to business. But God, I just had to talk about that because so many people wait till January. It's like people saying they're going to wait to get in good shape before they join the gym. What? That always cracked me up. You're in the predicament you're in because you've been waiting. The time is now. Let's get going. And speaking of that, let's get going in the podcast. You guys hear me say it every week. I'm doing some corporate speaking. I'm talking about the Whole Life Challenge. I'm talking about health and well-being. If you want to book me, send me an email at podcast@wholelifechallenge.com. And just putting it out there. I have a monthly newsletter on my website. It's called Stepping Up. Maybe I shouldn't say it's monthly. It's monthly if I have something relevant to talk about. But I didn't send one out on December 1st because I didn't have enough that I thought was relevant to send out. And I didn't want to just send a placeholder just because I'm supposed to do it every month. So I didn't send it out. So I send it out when I feel it's relevant. If you want to subscribe, go to andypetronic.com. I also publish a bodyweight workout almost once a week during the Whole Life Challenge. Actually, I do one once a week during the Whole Life Challenge, but I've got 41 of them. And they're follow-along workouts. You don't have to do them in order. You don't have to do them in any sort of sequence. Most of them are less than 12 minutes. They are done with body weight only. They can be done in your living room, in your hotel room, in your bedroom, wherever you've got space about the size of a mat. Boom. Check it out. They're really scalable for anyone. They can be great workouts and they can be pretty hard workouts. I mean, they can be great. They can be easy workouts or they can be pretty hard workouts. So, yeah, they're scalable. They're all great, if I don't say so myself. All right. So let's bring in our guest, Dr. Sean Pastuch. Let me tell you a little bit more about Sean. Man, what a great conversation. I mean, Sean is really on a mission to change the world. Let me read a little bit off of his LinkedIn page. I founded Active Life because I believed that the world deserves better solutions than the modern medical model can provide. The current medical model manages physical pain without considering the emotional ramifications of the proposed intervention. Too many people have heard from their doctor, quote, "You have to stop doing blank, playing blank, going blank," quote. And that's unacceptable. We take an oath to, quote, "do no harm," unquote. But how is harm defined? I believe it is harmful to tell someone they have to stop doing what gives them great joy so that they can eliminate the subjective discomfort that we call pain. So I came up with a replacement, a solution. His solution is this company called Active Life. He very often doesn't even call himself a chiropractor, much to the chagrin of his dad, who is a chiropractor. Because of the preconceived notions people have in their head about what that means he's going to do and what a chiropractor is supposed to do or not supposed to do. He really earns his living in the gym because he is as much about keeping you going and doing the things you love to do as he is about helping you get out of pain or helping you get out of injuries, help you manage injuries or manage pain. And it's really cool the way he's done this and built a program around what became a need of one of his clients. His client was moving away cross country, and he developed a way to work with him online across the country, which you wouldn't ordinarily think that a therapist or a chiropractor could do. But he's managed to do it. And he's built a team around him of people that do it with him. And we have a really fun, very conversation, a very varied conversation about leadership and life and recovery and mobility, the difference between mobility and stretching, flexibility. We talk about all the things that go into treating an injury. It's not just about the acute things happening around a joint necessarily. It could be, but it's not necessarily. I'm not going to tell you more about it. I'm just going to bring him in. So 3, 2, 1, here we go. Dr. Sean Pastuch. Wait a second. You just told me how to say that. I'm putting all these on. These are fucking outtakes.
Sean Pastuch.
This is Dr. Sean Pastuch. Welcome to the Breaking Ordinary podcast. Hey, everyone out there, we've started this 3 times. I think I might include all 3 times that I've tried to start.
I think you should. It'll definitely be a unique
hilarious
way for people to start a podcast.
It's the hardest part for me, for God's sakes.
I get it.
So welcome. It's funny because in looking at your Instagram feed, we were just talking about how, you will have heard that if I keep those outtakes in the introduction to the podcast. But you were a chiropractic doctor, and but it doesn't necessarily come across in your Instagram feed. So can you just start by telling people a little bit about who you are and how you got to the place that you are, and who you work with, and kind of a Reader's Digest background?
For sure. And what I would say is this: even when I was practicing as a chiropractor in clinic, I would never tell people I was a chiropractor. And it has nothing to do with being ashamed of it. I love being a chiropractor. But as soon as you tell somebody I'm a chiropractor, they go to the place where they assume that they know what that means.
Right.
And they're like, oh, right. So you do this. Got it. I don't need your help. I've tried that, blah, 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 blah. Like, no. I'm not that kind of chiropractor. Then you have to have that conversation. So I would just tell people, I help people get to their health and fitness goals through a goal-oriented, assessment-based approach. Like, oh, cool. Tell me more about that. Well, I use chiropractic adjustments. Wait, are you a chiropractor? Well, yeah, that's part of it. And it was a totally different way to loop it in.
Huh.
So people didn't shut off the conversation as soon as it opened. Like saying, I own a CrossFit gym. And then they're like, oh, I get it. High intensity, like grunting, shirts off, not my thing. So my background is my father was a chiropractor. My uncle was a chiropractor. I grew up, I was adjusted like hours old. I've been in the chiropractic world my entire life. As a kid, I had it nice. I never had to want for things. I don't have a rags to riches story. I don't have and then we lost our home, or, then they turned the lights off. That's not my life. And I'm fortunate to be able to say that. And it inspired me to want to be able to create that kind of a life for myself when it was my turn, and for my kids when it was their turn. All at the same time while kind of paving my own path. So growing up, it was, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. That's obviously what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a ton of money just mowing people down from 60 feet, 6 inches away. And then reality struck, and it was like, you're a freshman in college, you weigh 135 pounds, and the school you're at didn't recruit you, and you just got cut from the team. So what are you going to do? Like,
are you were a pitcher?
I was a lefty pitcher. Yeah, and I got recruited to Quinnipiac University and Towson University, which are both Division I on the East Coast. They're small Division I, but they're Division I. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go to Maryland, and I'm going to try out, and I'm going to blow these guys away. I don't even know what's coming. And they were like, yeah, you have a nice off-speed, good command. I like your pickoff move. Your fastball just doesn't come in fast enough, and you're too small, so we're going to cut you today. I was like, all right, I can't change that.
I'm already here.
Yeah, so like, all right, I guess I'm going to join a fraternity because I want to meet girls.
God.
So that happened.
That's a reality. I mean, were your parents on board with that decision?
To not be a pro baseball?
No, go to Maryland. Like, was that a part? Were they part of that?
They were happy with that because Maryland was my reach academic school. I wasn't exactly what you would call a teacher's pet in high school. I didn't. Yeah, studying and me were not the best of friends. Like I remember on the SATs when it was a 1,600-point test, my mom enrolled me in this course, this SAT course, and the two people who taught it were like, they were like waiting for God to come and grab them. Like it was. They were on the verge every day. They were so old, and they couldn't recognize what was going on in the room. And as a high school kid, I took advantage of that. You know, I cheated on all the tests that we took in the room.
Right.
And then when they would give us a homework assignment, I would literally go to basketball practice and circle whatever answer I wanted so they would see ink on the page and then go in and leave. And my mom would be like, how did SAT course go today? It sucks. It's a stupid course. I don't know why you're sending me to it. I took the PSATs and I got a 780. And my mom was like,
combined.
Oh, yeah.
Now that's not your verbal score.
No. That was combined.
Because that'd be a kick-ass verbal score.
Yeah, no. It was total. I remember walking out and it was me and this kid. My mom hates this story, so I hope she listens. It was me and Matt Friedman. And Matt Friedman was a grade ahead of me. And he's this really smart kid. Like really smart, gifted intelligence kind of kid. We walk out, we go, our moms are in the same place watching our sisters play soccer together. And they're like, how was the test? And he's like, oh my God, that was so hard. My mom's like, how'd you think it went? I thought it was pretty easy. He ended up getting like a 14 something.
That's right.
I get a 780. My mom was like, oh my God, my kid's not. He's screwed. So we made a deal that she made me go to this class. And she's like, if you break 1,200 in the SATs, you don't have to take them again. And I'm like, 1,200? All right, whatever. That doesn't seem like that far from 780. I can figure that out.
Right.
So I took the SATs. I got a 1220, and I danced around the room, and I was like, Mom, I'm fucking done with these. I'm never taking this test again. She's like, you didn't even study. Like, imagine if you prepped for the test. And I was like, yeah, I just don't care. I don't care what my grades are. I don't need validation from the outside world to tell me that I'm smart enough to go to college. So Maryland was a big reach school for me because at the time they were looking for like 1,250 to 1,300 SATs and an A GPA. I was a B GPA, but I wrote a really good essay and I lied about a bunch of stuff that I didn't participate in on my application for school.
Kids, close your ears.
Yeah. Nobody got hurt except maybe the person who got waitlisted and didn't get in. That guy probably got hurt by it. Right. Sorry, dude. But so I graduated University of Maryland, and I decided I wanted to be a personal trainer because I liked fitness more than chiropractic. And I started treating patients, seeing clients out of. I looked for the worst gym I could find.
Were you an exercise phys degree major?
Yes.
What did you? Yeah.
Yes. So if you look it up, the answer will be no. Maryland at the time had kinesiology, and I didn't bother to do the research to recognize that was the same thing. So I created my own major called the Individual Studies Program at University of Maryland. And that was an interesting process. They let you choose whatever classes you want and then present those classes to a board to decide if that's a legitimate major. And the first time I got denied, and they don't tell you why they deny you, like you got to resubmit. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, we can't tell you. You need to be more focused with it. I said, okay. So I changed one class, resubmitted it, wrote a new essay, and they basically like, you're through the first round, but we want you to change the name. I was calling it exercise science with a pre-med slant or something like that. And they were like, we want you to call it socio-behavioral and physical wellness. Now I'm 3 years into this process. I was like, I don't care if you call it my dog's ass. I'll take it.
Right.
I'm in.
Right.
So that was my major. I graduated.
Because 4 years, you're done. You're not sticking around for a fifth year.
I had to declare a family studies major by my junior year because you have to have a major by junior year. And that was the one that had the easiest single class I could take to be in a major. that I could apply to the major that I was writing for myself. So I was like, fine, I'll be family studies. This will be one of my prerequisites for my own major.
Right.
It was me and the basketball team in class.
Right.
So I graduated with the exercise education and with all the credits necessary to go to any medical school or chiropractic school I wanted, with a GPA that was just fine. It was a 3.0 or something GPA. I like to tell people I graduated 17th in my class at University of Maryland. They're like, wow, it's a big deal.
Yeah, right.
There were 17 people in my class.
What do you mean? What class?
In my major, because in your major,
right.
you graduate by majors.
Right.
So,
right.
I graduated.
Not your year, because your year is probably 8,000, 9,000,
Oh, yeah, it was 10, a lot of people. I don't have any idea. I didn't even go to that graduation.
Right.
But you show up at graduation for your major, and they're like, okay, so you prepared your speech, right? And I'm like, what? What speech? I didn't give a speech in front of all the parents and family who came to graduation in my major. I just winged it and graded it that day. But so I graduated with the exercise education and started doing personal training I wanted to be in the worst gym I could find because I didn't want to be found. I wanted to learn there, make mistakes there. Mm-hmm. I like to tell the story. I learned how to clean mirrors in a gym. You use newspaper. You don't use paper towels because they leave a residue.
Yep.
I learned how to grease selectorized machines. I learned etiquette for loading and deloading barbells. I learned that you can only put 2 45s on one side of a bar, and if you have a third, it will flip across the room.
Oh yeah, you learned from experience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
While I was helping a big dude, unrack his squat.
Yep.
So I learned all that stuff, and then happenstance was I sold a bag of steroids unknowingly. Someone just came, they gave me the $700 for their bag of steroids. I thought it was just a gym bag, and they no change. My dad gets under the desk. I was like, okay, I'm not going to work here anymore. And then I went and got a job working for Equinox, which is where I got exposed to physical therapy, which I hadn't been exposed to before because my father was a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. And to make a long story short, I'll get to it for you. I felt like I was falling short for my clients there, and they weren't giving me the answers I wanted in the physical therapy department upstairs. So I got my license as a chiropractor, started practicing with my dad, found CrossFit was more inspired by the patients who I was finding in the CrossFit gym at the time than the patients I had in my father's office. Went off on my own and opened my own CrossFit gym in 2011, my own clinic at the same time. Hurricane Sandy wiped them both off the map about a year after our opening. And I vowed that one day I would have a company that didn't require me to be anywhere at any time for anyone. And if we cut everything in between, that's where we are now.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I want to remind you that this podcast grows, lives, breathes, sees the light of day based on your willingness to share it with other people. If you're liking what you're hearing, if you like this conversation, pass it on to someone who you think would also benefit from hearing it. Pass it on in social media. Stick it up in Instagram. Stick it up in Facebook. If you're really pumped about the podcast in general, then go to iTunes and leave a review in iTunes. The easiest way to do that is to use the bit.ly link, bit.ly/Breaking Ordinary. It will open up the podcast in iTunes on your computer, and you can leave a review, and that would be awesome. So thanks again for being a listener, and let's get back to the show. So you cut your teeth. Would you say that your experience or your preference is to work with, well, what is your experience or preference? Because I know you have a lot of pretty high elite level athletes across your Instagram feed and people you work with in your program. But I would imagine if you're anything like I was as an owner, you're working with very normal people. So where do you fit in that spectrum?
Yeah. So first of all, my expertise now is I'm not the best coach on my staff anymore. In active life, online, the online company that I was able to fortunately create with help from all the experiences in my life and even business partners who I'm no longer partners with. I was the best coach on staff. I'm not anymore because my job, my preference is to mentor the staff that I have to be the kind of people that they need to be to be the kind of staff members that they want to be so that our company can grow in the way that it needs to grow. I had a business coach who taught me, the first thing he said to me is, if you want to be more successful in business, you got to become a better person. And I was like, well, I'm great. What are you talking about? I'm the man. Nobody told you. And this was, 2.5 years ago. And then the second thing that he taught us was great leaders develop people who can develop great people. So he's like, if you ever want your company to go anywhere, you're going to have to develop two sets of skills. They're sales and leadership. And when you think about leadership, what it means is not just doing the best job. It means developing people who can develop great people.
Yep.
That's what you need to do. So that's where I've been really heavily focused for the last year and a half.
And are you working with people now? I mean, you obviously work with people in person when you owned the gym and when you had your own clinic. How do you translate that to working online with people?
Yeah, so it'd be easier if I told you kind of where it started.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So we had a patient who ended up being a grid league athlete, if you remember a grid league.
Yep.
And he had to leave. It was season time. And he's like, hey, can you help me while I'm gone?
Let me tell people what that is real quick. So if you don't follow CrossFit, Grid League was a competitive league that was started by Tony Budding.
Yeah.
So Tony Budding was the original CrossFit guy, and he started this league, a competitive, team-based, functional fitness competition league, literally league. And there were teams that formed around the country, and kind of like NFL teams, but these were functional fitness teams, and they would go head to head on this grid, and the grid had various exercises, and they would compete for time, and it had about a 2-year lifespan, I think, 2 or 3 year lifespan.
2 or 3 seasons. I mean, you said it's like the NFL, but in fitness, it's like the NFL without the funding, the audience, the TV rights,
right?
Or
right with the athletes only, only.
Right. It was a nice stab, but the cool thing about it was I think it did make the marketplace smaller in terms of your ability to reach people. Because now all of a sudden people who were typically a Northeast athlete knew someone from Texas and Oregon because they were on the same team.
Yep.
So we were struggling in the clinic with the concept that people would always ask 2 questions when they came in. And those 2 questions were, how long is this going to take and what's it going to cost? And I hated those questions because it implied I don't want to be here and I don't want to spend money on this. So what's the least amount of time I can be here? And what's the cheapest we can do it for? I hated that. So we would ask patients, like, where would you rather be? And they're like, I'd rather be in the gym, man. Like, I don't want to, no offense, I don't want to be in your office. I'd rather be in the gym. Cool. So if we can create a way to get you out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym, you would do that forever. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we should come up with that way then. So that's what Active Life essentially is. We like to say now we're the only company in the world helping thousands of people to get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. And one of our patients was one of our test cases, and he moved away. His name was Drew Canavero. He moved to San Francisco to be on the San Francisco Fire Grid League team. And we were able to help him very, very well from a distance. Even surprising to us how well we could help him from a distance. Then he referred us to another person, to another person, to another person. And it just started to grow right there. And ultimately what happens now is we have a team of 15 doctors and 2 strength coaches who their job is to speak to people who are experiencing pain or who are experiencing performance plateaus, who want that to change, but don't want to go to the doctor's office and don't want to be told they have to stop going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been able to systemize, the interview process, the onboarding process, the programming protocols, and still maintain some of the art that allows these people to express their own beliefs and their own experiences into the way that they manage their clients, to the point that we now have people from all over the world getting out of pain with us and staying in the gym while they do it.
Now, I'm going to relate this to my own experience because about 1.5 years ago, I started going to a chiropractor here in LA. And I have various, and there are a couple of questions I have for a little bit later on. Like I have various inabilities that have plagued me my whole athletic career. And I went in thinking, I don't really need a chiropractor. I don't really want to be here. Exactly what you said. I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't really want to be here. I can fix most of this stuff. I already know all the mobility, Kelly Starrett, all the stuff. So I don't really need this. And yet I have these inabilities that I would like to make sure are not going to affect me when I'm 80 or 90. And I don't really know kind of I'm 50 now. So, I should probably address this stuff. So he took a bunch of x-rays and, things looked way worse than I thought they were. Like, cause I've had some lower back pain and I've had to stop squatting for various periods because of little tweaks in my lower back. So I started working with him and I actually started experiencing value and experiencing changes in my range of motion and my rotation and it was really cool. Like it was unexpected. I made a commitment for 3 months and went 3 days a week, and holy shit, by the end of the 3 months, my mobility had gone through the roof compared to what it was before. And I still see him. I go once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just so that I maintain that level of mobility. Now, the original thing I went in there for, which were to fix some of these long-term lack of mobility things, like one of them is one arm overhead squat. If I do a one arm overhead squat, even with a 5-pound dumbbell, my arm drops. I cannot keep that arm back up over my head. So that was one of the things I showed him. I'm like, can you help me with this? Like nobody's been really able to ever help me with that. But I've let go of some of those things because it became less important than the other impact that I was getting in terms of kind of the opening up of my whole spine, and I could feel like really, really good. So is that this is a long-winded question.
but I'm getting good info. Because I have fireworks going off in my brain.
Okay, good. All right, good. So I guess the original intention of the question was, how is that kind of thing possible if you're not there in person to work with someone? Like it doesn't seem, I can't imagine where you could have the online impact that I've experienced through the in-person impact that I've had with my chiro here.
Yeah. And for sure, that was my biggest concern when we first started. My specialty in chiropractic was soft tissue manipulation. So, not only was I watching you move, but I was putting my hands on you and affecting change that was measurable in the moment and sustainable. So I would treat your shoulder, measure your degrees of abduction with an inclinometer. So it can't lie. Put on the same landmarks and let's see where it goes. And your abduction might be 140 degrees when it should be 160, for example, or 180, excuse me. Now, I treat you. I go back in, I remeasure it, you're 156. You come back in a week later, you're 152. Well, that's measurable increase. And it's sustained a week later. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's not like you left and it went right back to what it was. That is something that has changed and we can change permanently. Like, how am I going to do this from a distance? And the answer is sometimes we're not best suited for people. We get, for every 100 calls that we get for people who want to work with us one-on-one, I turn away about 35%. And the reason that we do that is because it's really important to me that I set my staff up to be successful when somebody comes in. And that I also set that person up to be successful when they come in. Could we make more money up front if I took everybody? Yeah, perceptively we could. But how long is our reputation going to last? The people who come to us, who we can't help, we don't.
Right.
But we say we could. So we turn away the people who we're not 100% sure we can provide help to. Or in some cases, people are like, look, dude, I'm U.S. military, retired, contractor in Singapore, supporting the troops. My TRICARE doesn't get me health care over here, and I can't get into a military hospital. I need help. I'm willing to try anything. We're like, all right, well, look, we'll try it. But I'm going to be upfront with you. You're not a slam dunk case. And then at least they know.
Right.
So,
right.
So that's first and foremost how we've circumvented the problem that you're discussing.
Yep.
The second way is oftentimes you'd be surprised what load and time and motion combined can do. So let's take, for example, the shoulder. Let's say that you have someone who can't do a pull-up without shoulder pain, or they can't jerk a barbell without shoulder pain because they don't have full shoulder range of motion. They're limited and they know it. So it looks like a bench press at the top of a jerk.
Yep.
Or they're arched and they're pressing out in front.
Yep.
Well,
or they're adjusting by leaning back, and they're still their angle is closed. Yeah.
Right, but either way, the shoulder's not going through its regular range.
Right.
Or their shoulder hurts when they snatch. It's like, well, your range of motion for the snatch and the shoulder is very low. But if your torso is all the way forward, you're going to wrench on your shoulders. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we look at what are all the things that affect this person. What does your stress look like? What does your diet look like? What does your sleep look like? What does your movement look like? What do your movement practices look like? How often are you pressing in this direction versus this direction? How well do you press in this direction as compared to this direction? What about press versus pull? What about left to right? And when we go through all of that data collection, we're able to strip away the idea of your shoulder hurts when you lift weights. And we can get to the nitty gritty of these things are deficient. If we improve them, we can hypothesize that your shoulder will feel better. It's not treatment. If we can improve these, though, we believe your shoulders are going to feel better. The interesting thing that set the fireworks off in my head when you were talking is you went in to solve a single arm overhead squat, and now you don't even care about that. You just like the way that you feel.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I would argue that a good clinician, when you walk into their office, doesn't let you off the hook with that as your goal. They ask you, how would you feel if you could do that? Because that feeling is what we're actually searching for. You don't care if you can do a single arm overhead squat. You care about feeling the way that you believe being able to do that will make you feel.
Yeah, because I feel limited, and I don't like to think of myself as being limited in any freaking way. Like I look at myself like Superman, and Superman can do anything. So if I'm Superman, then I should not have a hole in my, I mean, it's funny because back when I first started CrossFit in 2003 or 2004, and I brought my first coach on, Becca, she wasn't a coach. She was just a client. And within, I don't know, 3 months or 4 months, a workout came up with a one-arm overhead squat. And it became very clear that the coach, who was supposed to be the superstar, couldn't do something. And I was a superstar in almost everything. And yet I got crushed in one-arm overhead squatches or snatches or, whatever. Did I say squatches?
That's okay. I know what you mean. And Andy, I've had people who've won the CrossFit Games on a team, but won it, and been the guy on the team who was the guy on the team. If I don't want to name names just because it's not fair to them. I haven't asked permission to do it. I gave this guy a 25-pound kettlebell overhead squat in a single arm as one of his exercises. He sent me videos, and it was like a laugh factory on our side. It's like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's a machine. He's competed at the games individually multiple times. He's won the games multiple times on a team.
Wow.
He was the captain of the team, and he can't overhead squat a 25-pound kettlebell?
Yep. It sounds very familiar.
Yeah, man. So
can you do it? Can you do it now? That's the question.
Once he stopped competing, he stopped really caring.
Right.
So we stopped looking for it.
Yeah.
And we haven't been coaching him for a while because his wants and needs out of life have shifted. Yeah,
it's kind of where I am. Like I don't really need to be able to do a one-arm overhead squat, and I don't really look at it the same way. I look at life a very different way than I did when I was a competitive CrossFitter.
And for the record, for anybody listening, if you want to be able to do a one-arm overhead squat, then get one. We're not suggesting that because you're not a competitive CrossFitter, you don't need to have one. If your MO is I need to be able to do this, then you need to figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And get help doing it. Because, one of the things that I didn't figure out for a very long time is it's not just going to get better by taking small weights and doing multiple small weights. It never improved. I do a 12-pound dumbbell. I do maybe a 15-pound dumbbell, and it did not matter. I mean, I got more endurance with my posterior, shoulder girdle, but that's about it.
Yeah. So you're telling me that, for example, if I can't do a pull-up, that just doing lighter pull-ups isn't the way to go? There's other stuff I can be doing to improve my ability to get myself over a bar than getting myself over the bar?
No, there's no other way. Sorry.
Oh, good. But it's crazy.
It's crazy.
You have coaches out there who are trying their best, and they're telling people that the way to get better at something like a muscle up is just to do more of them. That's the way to get better. And to a certain extent, that stuff is true. It's just not often enough that that's the case.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny how you fall into that. I knew better than that, and yet I didn't pay attention myself to my own limitations and my own coaching, because I know that. I've known that for years, and yet I didn't pay attention. So
none of us are above ourselves. I went and I was coaching a bunch of athletes on the CrossFit Mayhem team the last 2 years. And I went down to work out with Rich and Lindy at the barn. And we did the sandbag workout. And long story short, it took me and my partner, who was a regionals athlete also, 47 minutes to complete this workout that Rich and Lindy took 17 minutes. Like, Lindy was home and showered and sleeping before we were done. And I literally couldn't use my arm for the next 5 months. I let my ego get the best of me, and I went way too heavy because I said, Rich, I don't think I can do this. And he's like, you'll be all right. I'm going to tell Rich Froning I won't be. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm going to do it now because I'm the man, right? Not really. But so I fell into the same trap. I'm like, my arm isn't working. Let me see what I can find that will maybe give me some relief. And I'm like, you always tell people that these quick fixes don't work. Why are you looking for them?
Right.
Because in the moment, you're not above yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good, important, because it applies across life. It applies in everything. You're never better than what you're willing to do today. You're never better than the guy that's willing to clean the mirrors in the gym. When you lose sight of the fact that you are, we're all in that same, we're all in the boat together. We're all rowing together. And it's easy to lose sight of that when you become quote unquote successful.
Well, I think it's important for people to recognize that anytime that you don't get the response that you want from yourself or from other people, it's because of what you did. It didn't get the response you want because you either had unrealistic expectations for what the response was going to be, or you didn't communicate effectively on what you wanted. So, for example, with my wife, I can get really short with her without meaning to when she brings things up around especially fitness and diet, because she's not a health and fitness professional, but she wants the same kind of results that people who are getting. And she'll be like, oh, this Beachbody program looks so great. What do you think? And I'm like, if you want it, buy it. It's a waste of time. But if you want it, buy it. And she's like, why do you have to be such a dick? So it literally took me weeks of thinking about, why do I have to be such a dick? And I listened to someone else's podcast. I think it was the Brute Strength podcast. And it was the idea of, what are the emotions that you feel that make you act that way? Mm-hmm. Why do you feel that way when that thing happens? How do you avoid it? So I told my wife, I said, listen, the reason I apologize for acting the way that I act and for seeming dismissive of you, it's not my intention. I get frustrated because I know that those things are really good at marketing and not really good at actually delivering on what they say they're going to deliver. And I really just don't want you to be the next person who gets taken. Not my wife. I don't want it to be you. And at the same time, I have a hard time communicating with you on how you can do something better and providing you a better solution. For me, that's frustrating. So I end the conversation short and I'm dismissive and I don't mean to be, and I apologize for that. When it happens, if you could, I'm going to try to be aware of it. I would love if you could please call me out and remind me that I did that so that I can reset. Like, you're never good enough to stop.
Yeah, you just described about 20 years of frustration with my wife.
I bet, man.
I mean, oh my God. I mean, that's the world of, at least my world as a fitness coach and trainer and a professional, the last person in the world I want to give any fitness advice to is my wife. And so I don't. And
yeah, I learned that on Double Unders Day.
yeah, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of a question and it just blew out of my head. Tell me about the difference between flexibility and mobility.
Yeah. So you were mentioning Kelly Starrett before, and he has done such a good job of coining the word mobility that I believe people have lost sight of what he actually talks about. He talks about creating a momentary range of motion change and then exercising in that range to reinforce that you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just roll around on a ball. And that's what people believe these days, I think, mobility means. In part because Kelly's done such a phenomenal job of bringing that word to the public mindset. And people they hear the headline, they're done. So for us, the big difference, and I want to make sure I was clear about that. I'm giving credit to Kelly for bringing awareness to need and not diminishing what he's done.
Well, before Kelly, I mean, I can speak to this. There was no foam rollers. I mean, there were foam rollers, but people did not know what to do with them. There were no lacrosse balls. Lacrosse balls were literally, it's kind of like the way there were no thrusters and wall ball before CrossFit. They did not exist in the gym environment. They didn't exist with trainers. They didn't exist with people. Nobody even knew what the hell they were. And same with a lot of the rubber bands for, mobility. That never existed.
Mm-hmm.
So
without a doubt, Kelly was the first guy through the wall. And I actually just interviewed him on my show, and I told him, I appreciate you going through that wall because the first guy through it always gets bloody.
Yep.
And I was happy to be able to kind of sneak through it without having to bloody myself too bad. But that being said, flexibility to us and mobility are two very different things that people need to be aware. Flexibility is passive range of motion. Very simply, can your joint go there with the assistance of gravity or external load? Flexibility. So if you're sitting right now and you're trying to figure out what does he mean by that, grab one of your fingers and pull it back as far as you possibly can with your other hand. That is how flexible your finger is. Does it feel tight? Yeah, it should feel tight because you're at the end range. So tight, we're going to take out of the equation, that's a feeling, right? Nothing is tight. So flexibility is passive range of motion. Active range of motion is mobility. So mobility is what is your capacity to get into the same position that you just did passively. So if you take that same finger, how far can you bring it back without the assistance of the other hand? That's how mobile your finger is.
Okay.
So typically, it's 99.9% of the time, your mobility will not exceed your flexibility.
Yeah. So for instance, I have very tight hamstrings typically, and
they feel tight.
You mean they might not be tight?
Well, remember, pull your finger back as far as you can. If that's full range of motion and it feels tight, do you need to increase the range of motion, or do you just?
It just feels tight, right?
Right, but if it was limited range of motion and it felt tight, it would be the same sensation, and there would be something you need to do about it.
Okay, I get the distinction. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So my hamstrings constantly feel tight, and about 3 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with I had this real bad pain behind my knee, and I felt this lump behind one of my knees. I've really been pretty injury free my whole career, knock on wood. And I went in and got it ultrasounded, and it's a Baker's cyst.
Yep.
And so I've been very attentive. I've been Mark Proing like crazy, flushing it. I've been moving it because it feels better when I move it, and it's gone down. And but I just stood up, and I've got my leg propped up on my desk, and it's a standing desk, so I tend to stand in a kind of extent like a I'm doing a hamstring stretch. But I can never lift my leg up into an end range of motion that's as high as I can put my leg in from a passive stretching position. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so that is so much more profoundly important for a coach to know than most people will recognize if we don't go deeper into it. So what I mean by that is, let's take your hamstring, for example. Let's say if we test it, it has full expression of range of motion. Meaning, if you lay on your back, someone else can lift it through full range of motion.
Right.
It might be uncomfortable, but you can get there.
Yep.
Okay. What that means is that if you walk into the gym and spend 1 second trying to increase the range of motion of your hamstring because you can't access it actively, so you think your range of motion is limited, you've wasted that second. Because you have the necessary flexibility. What you're lacking is the mobility. Now the question becomes, why are you lacking the mobility? Typically, you're going to lack it because your body is creating momentary stiffness, which means it's saying, if Andy goes through that range of motion, something bad might happen, either in that muscle or somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So let's put the brakes on.
I saw you had Matt Fitzgerald on your podcast. He's an old,
yes.
He's been a speaker at my gym. I've had him on my podcast too, but I love his central governor conversation, and what he writes about is your brain always wants to protect. And so what you're saying is very, very true. I mean, it's very true, even not with injuries. Like, you've always got strength left, but your brain's not going to let you access it because you'll probably break you'll break your own arm. You'll break your own body. You'll break your own joints.
There's a really easy way to elucidate the point, and that is, if anybody listening to this has ever had sciatica. Have you ever had sciatica, Andy? I
haven't. Not official sciatica, like...
You don't want it.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't.
But so for anybody out there who's had it, you can tell the person who you talk to next about this. Your hamstrings, the day before your symptoms come on, plenty flexible, plenty mobile. You're like, I can touch my toes, no problem, nothing wrong with them. The day that those symptoms come on and you get that scorching pain down the back of your leg, you don't even want to tie your shoes or put your own socks on. You don't want to do anything that puts length through your hamstring. Reason being, your hamstring, your brain has communicated to your body, if we lengthen the hamstring, we're going to put more stress on the sciatic nerve that is already on it. That's going to potentially cause more damage. Shut it down. And that's it. So everything that's not sciatica is just a less invasive version of the same thing. Think if you've ever rolled your ankle. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Does it feel stiff immediately after?
Immediately after, yeah. It doesn't mean I've lost flexibility.
Right. You still have the flexibility. You're lacking the mobility. So now if you go to the doctor and he's like, oh, well, we're gonna use a smashing tool and we're gonna roll it around, and it's like, no. The reason I've lost range of motion momentarily is because the joint needs to heal. So the muscles are locking it in place so that can occur. If you create motion, you perpetuate injury.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, your hamstring, Andy, you say your hamstring feels stiff. You can't get it to full range of motion on your own. I would have to test that, but let's just say you reach down to the floor and you can't touch it with legs straight. Let's pretend that was the case.
Okay.
The question becomes, why? We can do it passively. Why can't you do it actively? It's not going to take a passive treatment or a passive intervention,
right,
to create an active response, right? Not
right.
long term.
Right.
So it becomes a question of, well, are you lacking strength? Are you maybe so overdeveloped on the other side of the bone? Mm-hmm. Do you have poor motor control? Are you bracing ineffectively? So all of a sudden your midline is wobbly and you're like, I got to create stiffness somewhere. Might as well be the hamstring. What is the reason that you're lacking that range of motion? Actively, we test for that. we solve for that, you become more mobile without ever having to roll on a ball, floss on a band, use a foam roller, or stretch, because those were not the things you needed.
Right. Right. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I get that. I don't get what it is that I would be doing, but there is no formula because it's different for everyone.
Right. Well, there is a formula, and the formula is figure out why they can't do it, and then apply the appropriate dosage response.
Right.
So let's take the ankle, because I think everybody here who listens to this show, or at least most of them, have seen somebody doing a banded distraction on their ankle to increase the range of motion so they can squat better.
I don't know if that's most people on this show.
Okay, most people you know.
Yes.
So let's take it this way then. Let's go backwards. Most people on this show have probably tried stretching.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay?
Yep.
So most people on the show have probably tried stretching because they feel tight. And I imagine that most of those people still have the same range of motion that they had when they first started stretching.
I would gather that's true. Yes.
Okay. So those people are in a position where they have to be asking themselves, why am I still doing this? If you had a headache and you were banging your head against the wall to get rid of the headache, and your headache didn't get any better, in fact, it got worse, you should probably stop banging your head against the wall to get rid of it.
Right. Totally.
So there are little tricks that people can learn that will help them improve their range of motion greatly. One of them is when you close a joint. So in your ankle, for example, when you try to drive your knee out past your toes with your heel on the ground. I want to be clear before I say this. These are all generalities. There are no absolutes.
Yep.
When you try to drive your knee out past your toes, if you're feeling limited, if your range of motion is limited, first of all, and you're feeling that limitation discomfort coming from the front of the ankle, you're probably feeling, bony or ligamentous restriction.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling it in the back of the ankle, in the Achilles, you're probably feeling musculotendinous restriction.
Yeah, I'm trying this. I'm trying this as we're doing it, and I feel it in my gastroc or in my soleus, like up higher, and I don't feel it in the ankle in the front, and I don't feel it in the tendon. I feel it up in the belly of the muscle.
Okay, so that we'd have to see what your range of motion is when you're doing that.
Right.
But either way,
because you're going to be limited at some point. You're not going to drive your knee and touch the ground. I mean, that,
right.
You know,
but there's full, right? There's you don't need to go any further than this.
Right.
After you've gone past this, you're no longer valuable.
Right.
So that's a great thing too, because maybe you're somebody who wants to be able to move better, so you keep stretching your ankle out, but you have full ankle range of motion.
Right.
But so, and your shoulders feel tight, so you keep stretching your shoulders, and your problem's actually in your ankle, because every time you do full body movements with the weight over your head, your shoulder has to contort. So of course it feels stiff. So to get back to what I was saying about the ankle, if you feel it in the back, no banded exercise in a passive way is going to change your range of motion. That's musculotendinous.
Right.
Those exercises are good for bony and ligamentous blocks. It's time under tension in an uncomfortable position. It sucks, but it works. What you need is time under tension through contraction, eccentric loading, farmer's carries, so that you're forced to go through gait in a more difficult way than you do right now.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of things that are going to load the soft tissues actively. That's how you're going to increase your range of motion. So it's a really quick and dirty way for someone to walk into the gym and say, okay, my shoulders feel limited when I bring my arms over my head. Do I feel it on top of the shoulder or under the shoulder? If I feel it on top, it's probably a bony issue.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel it on the bottom, it's probably a muscle length issue. Let's go to work.
So as we're talking about this, I started thinking about passive stretching versus active plyometric what people typically call stretching they typically call it stretching. Like my son's baseball team will go through a warm up where they go, and I've taught him this, but there are other coaches kind of carry it on, they'll go from head to their toes, and they'll, do neck circles, and then they'll do shoulder circles, and they'll move their shoulders this way, and then they'll do arm swings, and then they'll do trunk twists, just working their body through ranges of motion, leg swings, squats, lunges. How does that fit into this conversation versus just passive, take and hold your in a tricep stretch?
Generally speaking, I think it's a waste of time. Specifically speaking, it can be helpful because it can increase blood flow and proprioception across a joint that's about to be used. The laughable thing about doing something like that in baseball is they do that before the game starts, and then you're the home team, so you're in the field, or you're the visiting team, even better. You're sitting in the dugout, and you have a rally, but you popped up on the first pitch. So the team has a rally. You're sitting in the dugout for 20 minutes. Right. You're still loose.
Right. No.
When you go back out to the field, what do you do to loosen up your shoulder?
Nothing. Oh, you throw. You have a catch.
You do what you're going to do.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You're building neurological specificity. That makes sense. Now, I understand why people still do the other stuff. It feels good. It provides a proprioceptive increase in range of motion that's pain-free. So it does have value. It's just not long-lasting value. It has better value than the static stretching because it's going to promote more blood flow.
Okay.
And it's typically going to be more active, so you're going to build that neurological connection. That being said, if it takes you 30 minutes to warm up to a deadlift, you're in trouble when you have to pick something up in the real world.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I hope so. We're in trouble if it doesn't.
Well, I mean, you're, and I wouldn't say you're questioning, but you're putting you're poking holes into long established beliefs and thoughts and thinking that most people think about when they go to the gym or when they go do a workout or when they, if you get an app. In fact, I've got some buddies that are doing this app that's called the Results app, and it's got this alphabet workout. And I tried it this morning just because I want to see what the hell they were doing. And it goes through Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and I started with Alpha, and it starts super, super easy and short. It's like a 3-minute workout. And I think this morning it was squats and push-ups and leg raises. But it goes through a 4-minute warm-up. And the warm-up really is, they did bird dogs, and then 30 seconds of bird dogs, and then 30 seconds of jumping jacks, and then 30 seconds of... And it was really a warm-up that got my blood pumping, and... it got me more ready to actually move cardiovascularly into the workout than I was ready before. It didn't.
And that's important.
Right. But it didn't. It didn't do anything for my mobility or range of motion.
It might have at a low level that you weren't even conscious of.
Right.
There is certainly value to adding blood flow prior to going. I want to make sure people understand. I'm not saying you're pitching tonight in your baseball game. Just show up cold and throw hard. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm not even saying just get on the mound and start throwing. By all means, go run some pulls. Do some arm circles. Grab a band. Do some stuff for your shoulder. By all means, do whatever it is that makes you feel prepared. It's just a question, and I'm not even, we get all the time what you just said, and I think this is actually the first time I've been able to hear it, process it, and provide an answer that's coherent. We're actually not questioning normal standing beliefs. What we're questioning is the efficiency of normal standing beliefs. And the question of, is it okay to do something that is less effective in the same amount of time that you could have done something more effective? And my answer is no. So what I mean by that is, if you're the person who walks, you're going on a run and you spend 30 seconds on your hands in like a push-up position, stretching your calves, for example, right? Where you're like in a push-up, one foot's on the floor, the other foot's up.
Yep.
To me, number one, the stretching isn't going to work. But number two, you're stretching the wrong calf muscle.
Right.
So even if it was going to work, you're stretching the wrong calf muscle because you're never going to be in an extended leg position where the knee is straight. So you're stretching the calf muscle that's not going to be on full tension when you run. That's unacceptable. You have to work on the one that is going to have the impact. So it's just breaking down the things that you're going to do and taking a pragmatic approach to them.
Right.
Like people love to give up. I made a post today. I know this won't come out today, but I made a post yesterday and then I doubled down on it today. It essentially said, you can get stronger at your squat by doing step-ups without squatting.
Dude, it's on. What do you mean? I was going to ask you about that because there's a shit ton of conversation about that on your Instagram feed.
Man. Yeah.
You created a firestorm.
Yes.
People are freaking pissed.
They are pissed. They're pissed because it doesn't match their dogma and because they're not wrong. They're all right. Everybody who is commenting is correct. That's the thing. We're not suggesting that you should eliminate squatting and do step-ups so that you can increase your squat. What we're suggesting is that our audience skews to a group of people who have overdosed on squatting and underdosed on unilateral loading. And we believe that if they would just normalize that ratio, everything would get better. That's all we're saying.
Right.
We're not saying that, if you're a power lifter, abandon the squat and use step-ups, and when you show up at the meet, you'll be the man. That is not what we're saying.
Right.
That's how it's being taken. And by the way, I'm really cool with that. It's driving plenty of traffic and
yeah, right.
And
but it's I mean, more importantly than that, it's opening up a conversation. And I think that's really what's more important. That's the point, is to open the conversation and to get more people talking. It makes me think, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, when you have a person who's, detrained, not a CrossFitter, and has not been going to the gym, what are some of the tips you might give to someone who's just getting started? Maybe they're not, I know maybe this is too broad of a question to ask you. I don't know.
It's a great question. And the answer I would give is, spend your first month feeling like you didn't do enough when you went to the gym.
Say that again.
Meaning, spend your first month in the gym feeling like you didn't work out hard enough.
So go easy, in other words.
Yeah. And I'm talking about easy. You just got off the couch.
Yeah.
Like it used, I know it's still a badge of honor for someone to walk into the CrossFit gym day 2, like they rode a horse without a saddle for 4 hours on day 1. And be like, dude, I couldn't even walk down the stairs and I couldn't get off the toilet this morning. It took me like 4 hours. My abs are spasming, my quads are on fire. This is insane. What did you do to me? And then the coach is like, you get used to it. It doesn't get easier. You just get better. It's like, I was there. I did those things. I said those things. It's not an effective way to get yourself to the goal that you want.
Right.
And I think that what's really important is, in order to be able to do that, to even be able to go into the gym and have that kind of a mentality, you have to know what that goal is. And it goes back to what we were talking about. You don't want a six-pack. You want to feel the way that you believe a six-pack will make you feel. Now, okay, I'm all about getting one. I have a six-pack. I love it. I still check the mirror every day to make sure it's there because I'm not working out as hard as I used to.
Right.
But certainly get it. Yeah. But, I'm not looking in the mirror to make sure I have a six-pack. I'm looking in the mirror to make sure I still feel good about the way my body looks.
Right.
That's all.
That's a really good, important distinction. I like that. Yeah. There's a feeling that's generated from your ability to either move or to do something that you think is important. Like if push-ups are your thing and you think that 50 is going to make you feel like Superman, then by God, you better figure out how to do 50 push-ups.
That's right. Or figure out why you think 50 push-ups is what's going to make you feel like Superman.
Yeah, right. Maybe it should be squat. It should be squats,
Yeah, of course. Squats and thrusters. No, I mean, give yourself the leeway. Like, forgive yourself for not knowing why you want to feel the way that you want to feel. And then give yourself the time to figure it out. Because that's the deep work. That's the hard stuff that people don't do. And it's the reason why people don't get the results they want. Companies like Nutrisystem, they don't sell weight loss. They sell convenience. Mm-hmm. oh, I don't have to do any hard work. Well, you worked your ass off to gain 50 pounds. So you're going to have to work your ass off to lose it. I'm sorry, that's the truth.
Yep.
And it starts by developing the habits that make you the kind of person who never would have gained those 50 pounds in the first place.
Right.
And then they'll fall off.
Let's take that same person. Do you recommend when they start that they start body weight versus barbells versus tools?
Start in a way that inspires you to be there. That for me, it's as long as you're in the room, you're winning.
Right.
So start in a way that inspires you to be there and makes you want to come back. Right now, I don't really care what I can clean or snatch or muscle up. I'm going to an MMA gym and getting beat up every day. And that's cool. I'm inspired to be back in there tomorrow because I thought I had a decent wrestling background and I could take somebody who's novice down to the ground. And today I went and got my ass kicked. And I learned a lot of lessons.
That's funny. I'm doing something similar. I'm for the first time in my life, I'm taking classes in kind of kickboxing and martial arts. Like I'm going to Krav Maga, learning how to do Krav Maga, and
kick him in the crotch.
Exactly. And I'm not committed that Krav is going to be my end all be all. Like I'm just committed to getting started and going down this path. And my third day in class, I'm in a beginner's class, and this guy went like 3 moves beyond what the exercise was, and he kneed me in the ribs. And so now I have this the same treatment for a broken rib as it is for a strain. So I haven't gotten it diagnosed. But it's painful. I'm breathing, sneezing hurts and coughing hurts and sleeping hurts and it sucks. But, I'm reminded that, the good thing and the learning for me is this is not a fitness class. Barbells don't move. I mean, you can hurt yourself with a barbell, don't get me wrong, but they're not coming at you, right. And, it's my job as even in a beginner class, even as a, person who's never done this crap before, to protect myself and be aware. I can't let my guard down until I'm, drinking water. So it's good learning. It kind of sucks that I'm feeling it, but I'm going back tomorrow.
That guy didn't need to go 3 moves past where he was supposed to go either.
He didn't. But if I sit and blame him for what an asshole that guy is, it doesn't really get me anywhere. So I got to extract the learning for me out of it, and move on. And that's otherwise I'm going to go down the road of that guy's an asshole, and next time I see him, I'm going to kick his fucking ass, and that doesn't get me anywhere either.
No, you're absolutely right. If you take the mindset of I need to be prepared for someone to go too far. Yeah. And then when they don't, it's like, oh, that was a good class. No, I went too far today.
Yeah, I went yesterday, and that's exactly what happened. That's a win in my book.
Yeah, I didn't get my eyes gouged or my balls grabbed today. It was a good day.
So let me ask you, what do you see as your mission going forward now that you're in this zone of you're no longer attached to a gym, you're no longer tied to a physical location, you're building this business, this online business. Where do you go from here? Do you just see building this empire and becoming, taking over the world as
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So in short, the tangential mission is to humanize the doctor, educate the coach, and empower the individual. So we, the way I see it right now is you have your doctors on one side of a river and your coach is on the other side. And when somebody wants to work with both, they have to swim across.
Yeah, right.
And it's just not practical. So we want to build a bridge, and we want to allow doctors and coaches and individuals to walk across. So I think that part of that needs to be that coaches need to be able to speak a language that doctors recognize as educated. Because if a doctor says he's got pain in his distal arm, and the coach is like, so what, like by his shoulder? The doctor's just, your respect is gone. Right. And rightfully so, by the way. As a doctor, if the coach says to you, oh, cleans bother him, and you say, oh, like vacuuming, then you've lost the coach's respect. Yep. And you should. And the individual shouldn't be left to figure out what they need to do to help themselves. There should be a system in place that guides them. I hate those medicine commercials. Oh, you need to tell your doctor about Preventa. If you need Preventa, your fucking doctor's going to tell you about it.
Right.
You know, you need to walk in and tell your doctor that you want to take Prevanta, whatever that is. So that's the tangential mission. The tangible mission is that by May 1st, 2023, I'd like to be able to measurably replace chiropractic and physical therapy as a primary source of musculoskeletal pain for active populations worldwide. So the math on that is about 2.4 million people in the demographic that we currently serve will see a chiropractor or a physical therapist somewhere in the world at least once per year. If we get 1.2 million inquiries from people who haven't, then we know we've got 50% of the market thinking about us before they think about the chiropractor or the physical therapist. And that doesn't mean that we wouldn't send them to the chiropractor or the physical therapist.
Yeah, because you can't, like you said, you turn away 35% of the people that first, fill out the inquiry. You can't serve everyone online.
Yeah, and that number would go up. If we had 1.2 million people calling, it would probably be more like 50 or 60%.
Right.
And I'm cool with that. I just want to get people to the right place so that they can stop giving themselves a narrative that they have a bad knee. Yep.
That's cool. I like the mission. I like the clarity that you've got. I like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it comes out in your Instagram feed, and it's I like the shortness of your messages. And by the way, you guys will if you go to the show notes, you'll be able to see all the ways to connect with Sean there. But it's a really fun feed. I like your quizzes too. Those are fun.
I got to bring those back. It's been too long since I've done one. They're so hard to keep up with.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like, well, what can I show and how can I make that a 50-50?
Yeah. Do you obviously have to come up with what's the question, and then you have to go film the person doing the thing. There's a little bit of production involved and sequencing.
I never really create the video around the quiz. It's always content that I already have that I repurpose as a quiz.
Gotcha.
But again, that becomes, okay, well, what am I asking them about here? How can I make sure that the question that I'm asking has a right answer? Yeah. And how can I make sure that I make it clear what the right answer should be in the answers?
Right.
It's fun. I would love to have somebody in my company doing it for me.
Yeah, I always get lost in Instagram stories too. Like I don't think about stories. Posting to Instagram is kind of fun. Like I usually do. I do some kind of quote, or I do some kind of a fun thing I'm doing working out or whatever. But stories are. I just don't want to be that into social media. I don't want to be that, and it just takes over. When I do.
That's because you call it social media. If you think of it as business media, then the way that you look at it is your feed is your window and your story is your salesperson. So somebody's going to come into the store when they see the window and it's all nice and shiny and the things look like they want them. They're going to buy when they walk inside and somebody greets them and helps them.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Right.
So that's how I look at our business media pages.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at that. I've never really thought about that, but that's a cool way to, yeah. Right. I mean, very few people will buy off of your window. Right. They need a salesperson. And so that's the way to engage with you personally.
Yes. And that's why using things like you won't see us doing things like, oh, use code Lindy for 20% off, because Lindy's not a salesperson and no one's going to buy from her window. So what we do is, and we're going to be doing this next year, we're building out a robust ambassador program next year. And the first thing that we're doing is inviting them to New York to go through a 2-day-long course where we teach them how to sell with their social media so that they can actually be successful. And the idea is, look, if you just think you're going to post a code, then you're just going to be another person bringing awareness to our company, but you're not going to drive any sales.
Yep.
So yeah, you're 100% right. They're not buying from the window.
Right. Well, Sean, thanks so much for being on the show. I always end a show after about an hour, and knowing that I could go on for probably 2 or 3 hours. Like there's plenty of things that are still very interesting to me to talk about, and would be great. But I just so far don't have the audience that Joe Rogan does, and don't know that I even want that, because good God, a 3-hour podcast is crazy.
Well, when you're making $500,000 per episode.
Yeah, no, that'd be fine. That would be fine too. But that's not really my full-time job. This is just a fun this is a fun thing we do to provide content to people in the Whole Life Challenge.
Sure.
So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you being here, and it's been really fun to connect with you, knowing who knowing you, quote unquote, knowing you through a video chat versus just knowing about you.
Yeah, I love doing this stuff. So if you're ever looking for a guest, I'm happy to come back.
Cool. And I really want to acknowledge you and appreciate you for what you do, what you're doing in the world, because I think that the context shift that you're creating and the conversation that you're creating and the way you're doing it, the way you engage people, is really, really exciting, and it's very, very cool. And I really appreciate that you do what you do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The Whole Life Podcast is produced by our podcast team, Winslow Jenkins, Becca Borowski, and Ernie Hurtado. You can find all of our episodes, links, and complete show notes at wholelifechallenge.com/podcast. The way that I've found is the best way to listen to podcasts is to subscribe so that episodes automatically get delivered right to your mobile device. You can do that in any podcast app on your phone. And hey, if you like the podcast, please do me a favor. Go to iTunes and give it a 5-star rating and recommend it to your friends. I'm Andy Petronic, and thanks so much for listening.